Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm with the education team at Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. And in honor of Go Birding Day, today I'm going to be speaking with local bird expert Bruce Bryden. Bruce has lived in Holland Landing, overlooking the Holland River Valley for 46 years. He's a master naturalist, having an interest in all aspects of our natural world, but since the age of 5, his passion has been birds. He has made the annual trek to the Birda's Mecca, Point Pelee, for close to 50 years and has contributed to the National Audubon Society's Christmas bird count in and around King Township since 1985. What got you interested in birds?
Well, Nicole, I grew up in a family who were interested in birds. Specifically, I had two aunts that never married. Both were quite interested in bird watching. One of the two aunts worked in Miami when I was a youngster. So our family, my brother and I, and mother and father, drove down to Miami in the winter to visit her. And while we were there, she took us and showed us things like great egrets and even brown pelicans and all the snowy egrets and herons and that occur in the Everglades. And I was fascinated by that. That continued when we came home. My parents had binoculars, they had bird books, we'd live by a woods, we'd see what was there. And it just evolved over time that I got more and more interested. I had a friend who got very interested in bird watching, and so by the time we were 16, we were driving down to Pelee and seeing what we could find down there, and it just continued from that point forward.
What is your favorite bird and why?
My favorite group of birds are ones that we'll never see in the local watershed, and those are the albatrosses. Specifically, the wandering albatross is number one on my list. Here's a bird that has a 2.5 to 3.5 meter wingspan, or around 10 feet. Can circumnavigate the Southern Ocean up to 3 times in a year. That's 120,000 kilometers. One bird has done it. Just amazing. And this is the Southern Ocean that goes north from Antarctica. It is a wild place, but it's a magical place. And just to be free and soaring over those waves just catches my imagination.
What is the most rare bird you've spotted in the Lake Simcoe watershed?
The rarest bird I've found is a loggerhead shrike. You know, Nicole, that they're an endangered species and very hard to find now. Well, this was back in 1980, and even then they were very rare. This pair that I found are the only ones I've ever seen anywhere in York Region, let alone within the watershed. The bird flew across in front of me when I was driving and landed in an apple tree. And I could see when I stopped and took a good look that there was another adult sitting in a nest in the tree. So I had a pair of nesting shrike. This was in northern King Township back in the period 81 to 85 when we were doing the first Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas. The Atlas is a work of volunteers that each go out and survey a 10 by 10 kilometer square and record the birds that breed in that square over the period of the Atlas study, which is, in this case, was 81 to 85. So wasn't in my square, but I was quite happy to find the shrike nesting, and I sent the results in, and it's recorded in the Atlas.
What are some of the most common feeder birds to see right now?
Birds that you could expect to see at your feeder this time of year would be things like mourning dove, downy woodpecker, maybe a hairy woodpecker, blue jay, black-capped chickadee, red-breasted and white-breasted nuthatch, song sparrow, maybe a chipping sparrow. We're in the springtime now. Chipping sparrows are coming back. During the winter, American tree sparrows are more likely here. Other birds would be common grackle, American goldfinch, and house sparrow. A little later in the spring, maybe into early May, ruby-throated hummingbirds will come back. as will Baltimore Orioles. You need special feeders to attract hummingbirds that you can get, hummingbird feeders that serve up a syrup. And Orioles, there's Oriole feeders too, but Orioles like oranges and grape jelly, I'm told.
And our last question, Bruce, what are some tips you could give someone just starting out as a birder?
Well, first of all, try and get your hands on a pair of binoculars. Being able to see the birds well is the first step in identifying them. Secondly, get a field guide. A guide doesn't have to be ornate. A guide book that you can take with you in the field, so that if you see something you don't recognize, you can start looking for it, looking it up while it's fresh in your memory or possibly still in front of you. Next, I'd say learn the local birds, the ones around your home. They're easy to see. You see them all the time. Learn which ones they are. Learn their songs, so that if you hear different songs when you're out in the quote-unquote field, you'll know that there's something different, something new. Learn a bit about habitat preferences if you can. Your guide should be good for that. Obviously, ducks love water. What birds would you expect to see if you took a walk in the forested areas of one of the conservation areas? What would you see if you were in a field? That sort of thing can be useful, so that when you're there, you know what to expect. Know a little bit about seasonality too. In other words, what birds are around in the winter in this part of the world, and what birds are not here in the summer. And finally, the number one tip for doing anything in life is practice. Get out in the field and observe birds. If you're having trouble identifying them, try and find somebody who can help. There's many online resources and all sorts of things, tools to help you.